Marley was dead, to begin with. There is no doubt whatsoever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner, Scrooge, son. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. This must be distinctly understood, or else nothing wonderful can come of this story I'm going to relate. Scrooge knew he was dead. Well, of course he did. How could it be otherwise? Scrooge and Marley were partners for, well, I don't know how many years. Scrooge was his sole executor, his sole administrator, his sole residuary legatee, his sole friend, and his sole mourner. Scrooge never painted out old Marley's name, however. There it stood for years afterward above the warehouse door, Scrooge and Marley. For sometimes people new to the business called Scrooge, Scrooge, and sometimes Marley, but well, he answered to both names. It was all the same to him. But he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, was Scrooge, squeezing, wrenching, grasping, clutching, covetous old sinner, hard and sharp as a flint, from which no steel had ever struck a generous fire, secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. No one ever stopped him in the street to say, "Oh, my dear Scrooge, how are you?" No beggars implored him to bestow a trifle. No children asked him what it was o'clock. No man or woman ever once in all his life inquired the way to such and such a place of Scrooge. Even blind men's dogs seemed to know him, and when they saw him coming on, would tug their owners into doorways. But what did Scrooge care? This was the very thing he liked, to edge his way along the crowded paths of life, warning all human sympathy to keep its distance. Once upon a time, upon all the good days of the year, on Christmas Eve, old Scrooge sat busy in his counting house. It was cold, bleak, biting weather. The city clocks had only just gone 3, but it was quite dark already. And candles were flaring in the windows like ruddy smears upon the palpable brown air. The fog came pouring in through every crack and keyhole. It was so dense without that the houses opposite were mere phantoms. And out the door of Scrooge's office was open, that he might better keep his eye upon his clerk, Bob Cratchit, who, in a dismal little cell beyond, was copying letters. Scrooge had a very small fire, but the clerk's fire was so very much smaller that, well, it looked like one coal. He tried in vain to warm himself at the candle, but each effort, not being a man of strong imagination, he failed. "A Merry Christmas, Uncle! God save you!" cried a cheerful voice. It was the voice of Scrooge's nephew, Fred, who had so heated himself with rapid walking in the fog and frost that he was all in a glow, and his breath smoked again. "Bah!" said Scrooge. "Humbug! What? Christmas a humbug? Uncle? Oh, you don't mean that, I'm sure." "I do. Merry Christmas. What right have you to be merry? What reason have you to be merry? You're poor enough." "Oh, come then. What right have you to be dismal? What reason have you to be morose? You're rich enough." To which Scrooge, having no better answer ready on the spur of the moment, said, "Bah!" again, and followed it up with "Handback." "Now, don't be cross, Uncle." "Oh, well, what else can I be? I live in a world of fools such as this.
Merry Christmas, eh? Out upon a Merry Christmas. What's Christmas time to you? But a time for paying bills without money, eh? A time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. If I had my will, every idiot who goes about with Merry Christmas on his lips should be boiled in his own pudding and buried with a stake of holly through his heart he should. But Uncle Nephew, keep Christmas in your own way, and let me keep it in mine. But keep it? You don't keep it. Or let me leave it alone then. Much good may it do you. Much good has it ever done you.
But there are many things from which I might have derived good, but by which I've not profited, I dare say. Oh, Christmas among the rest. And yet I've always thought of Christmas as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable time. It's the only time I know of when men and women seem, by one consent, to open their shut-up hearts freely, when to think of other people as if they really were fellow travellers to the grave. And therefore, Uncle, although it has never put a scrap of gold in my pocket, well, I believe it has done me good, and it will do me good. And I say, God bless it. A clerk involuntarily applauded.
Let me hear another sound out of you, Cratchit, and you'll keep your Christmas by losing your situation. You're quite a powerful speaker, sir. I wonder you didn't go into Parliament.
Don't be angry, Uncle. Come, dine with us tomorrow. But why? Why won't you?
Why did you get married?
Oh, because I fell in love.
Because you fell in love?
Growled Scrooge, as if that was somehow the one thing in the world more ridiculous than a Merry Christmas.
Good afternoon.
Uncle, you never came to see me before that happened, but why give it as a reason for not coming now? Eh? I want nothing from you. I ask nothing of you. Why can we not be friends?
Good afternoon.
I am sorry with all my heart to find you so resolute. We've never had any quarrel to which I've been a party. But I have made this trial in homage to Christmas, and I'll keep my Christmas humour to the last. So, a Merry Christmas, Uncle.
Yes, yes. Good afternoon.
And a Happy New Year.
Good afternoon, you...
Scrooge's nephew left the room without an angry word notwithstanding, and stopped at the outer door to exchange the greetings of the season with the clerk, who, old as he was still warmer than Scrooge.
Yes, there's another fellow, my clerk, with 15 shillings a week, and a wife and family talking about a Merry Christmas. I'll retire to bedroom.
The clerk, letting Scrooge's nephew out, had let two other gentlemen in, who stood now with their hats off in Scrooge's office.
Scrooge and Marley's, I believe. Now, have I the pleasure of addressing, Mr. Scrooge or Mr. Marley?
Mr. Marley has been dead these 7 years. He died 7 years ago, this very night.
We trust his liberality is well represented by his surviving partner. My credentials, sir.
At this ominous word, liberality, Scrooge frowned and handed him the credentials back.
At this festive season of the year, Mr. Scrooge, it is more than usually desirable that we should make some provision for the poor and destitute who suffer greatly at the present time. Many thousands are in want of common necessaries, and hundreds of thousands are in want of common comforts, sir.
Are there no prisons?
Well, plenty of prisons, yes.
And
and the union workhouses. Are they still in operation?
They are. I wish I could say they were not.
Well, I'm very glad to hear it. I was afraid, gentlemen, from what you said at first, that something had occurred to stop them in their usual course. Well, a few of us are endeavoring to raise a fund to buy the poor some meat and drink and means of warmth. We choose this time because it is a time of all others when want is keenly felt and abundance rejoices. Now then, what shall I put you down for? Nothing. Oh, well, you wish to be anonymous? I wish to be left alone. Since you ask me what I wish, gentlemen, that is my answer. I don't make myself merry at Christmas, and I can't afford to be making idle people merry. I help to support the prisons and the workhouses. They cost enough, and those who are badly off must go there.
Many can't go there. Many would rather die.
Well, if they would rather die, then they'd better do it and decrease the surplus population. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
See clearly that
It would be useless to pursue their point. The two gentlemen withdrew, and Scrooge resumed his labors with an improved opinion of himself, and the fog and darkness thickened. The cold became intense, piercing, searching, biting cold. In the main street, at the corner of the court, some laborers were repairing the gas pipes, and had lighted a great fire in a brazier, on which a party of ragged men and boys were gathered, warming their hands and winking their eyes before the blaze in rapture. The small boy, gnawed and numbed by this hungry cold, stooped down at Scrooge's keyhole to regale him with a Christmas carol. But at the very first sound of "Go rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing you dismay," Scrooge seized a ruler with such energy that the young singer fled in terror, leaving the keyhole to the fog and the even more congenial frost. At length, the hour of shutting up the counting house arrived. With an ill will, Scrooge dismounted from his stool, and the expectant clerk instantly snuffed out his candle and put on his hat. You'll want all day then tomorrow, I suppose.
if quite convenient, sir.
It is not convenient. It's not fair. If I was to stop half a crown for it, well then, you'd think yourself mighty ill-used, I'll be bound.
Yes, sir.
And yet you don't think me ill-used when I pay you a day's wages for no work?
Well, it's only once a year, sir.
It's a poor excuse for picking a man's pocket every 25th of December. I suppose you must have the whole day. Be here all the earlier next morning.
What? I will, sir. Thank you, sir.
Scrooge took his usual melancholy dinner and his usual melancholy tavern, and after went home to bed. He lived in chambers which had once belonged to his deceased partner. They were a gloomy suite of rooms in a lowering pile of buildings up a yard so dark that even Scrooge, who knew its every stone, was fain to grope with his hands. Now, it is a fact that there was nothing at all particular about the knocker on the door of this house. Then let any of you explain to me, if you can, how it happened that Scrooge, having his key in the lock of the door, saw in the knocker without its undergoing any process of change. Not a knocker, but Marley's face. Marley's face, with a dismal light about it. The hair was curiously stirred, as if by breath or hot air, and though the eyes were wide open, they were perfectly motionless. Scrooge looked fixedly at this phenomenon. It was a knocker again. He did pause before he shut the door, and he did look cautiously behind it at first, as if he half expected to see Marley's pigtails sticking out into the hall, but there was nothing on the back of the door, except the screws and nuts that held the knocker on, so he closed it with a bang. Sound resounded through the house like thunder. Every room appeared to have a separate peal of echoes of its own. Scrooge was not a man to be frightened by echoes. Up Scrooge went, not caring a button for its being very dark, for darkness is cheap, and Scrooge liked it. But before he locked his heavy door, he went through his rooms to make sure that all was right. Sitting room, bedroom, all as they should be. Little fire in the grate, spoon and basin ready. Ready under the table, ready under the bed, and nobody in his dressing gown, which was hanging up in a suspicious attitude upon the bedpost. Quite satisfied, he locked himself in. He double-locked himself in, which was not his custom. And thus, secured against surprise, he took off his coat, put on his dressing gown, and sat before the low fire. As he drew himself back in the chair, his glance happened to rest upon a bell, a disused bell that hung in the room and communicated for some purpose now forgotten with a chamber in the highest story of the building. It was with great astonishment and with a strange, inexplicable dread that as he looked, he saw this bell begin to swing. Might have lasted half a minute or a minute, but it seemed an hour. The bells ceased as they had begun, together. This was succeeded by a clanking noise deep down below, as if some person were dragging a heavy chain. A cellar door flew open with a booming sound, and then he heard the noise much louder on the floors below, and coming up the stairs, and coming straight towards his door, it came on through the heavy door. A spectre passed into the room before his eyes. Upon its coming in, the dying fire leaped up as though it cried out, "I know him!" Marley's ghost. That same face. The very same. Marley, in his pigtail, waistcoat, tights, and boots. A chain was clasped about his middle. It was long and wound about him like a tail. And it was made of cash boxes, keys, padlocks, ledgers, deeds, and heavy purses wrought in steel. His body was transparent, so that Scrooge, looking through his waistcoat, could see the two buttons on his coat behind. Scrooge that Marley had no bowels, but well, he never believed it until now. No, nor did he believe it even now, though he looked the phantom through and through and saw it standing before him, though he felt the chilling influence of its death-cold eyes, and marked the very texture of the folded kerchief bound about its head and chin. He was still incredulous. How now? What do you want with me? Much. Marley's voice, no doubt about it. Who are you? Ask me who I was. Who were you then? In life, I was your partner, Jacob Marley. Can you sit down? I can. Well, drink then. The ghost sat down on the opposite side of the fireplace, as if he were quite used to it. You don't believe in me. I don't. Why do you doubt your senses? Because a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You might be an undigested bit of beef, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grain about you, whatever you are. Oh! How great was his horror when the phantom, taking off the bandage around its head, as if it were too warm to wear indoors, its lower jaw dropped down upon his breast. Mercy, dreadful apparition, why do you trouble me? It is required of every man that the spirit within him should walk abroad among his fellow men, and if that spirit goes not forth in life, it is condemned to do so after death. Oh, woe is me! I wear the chain I forged in life. I made it link by link and yard by yard. Yours was full heavy, and as long as this 7 Christmas Eves ago, you have labored on it since. Yours is a ponderous chain. Jacob Marley, speak comfort to me, Jacob. I have none to give, nor can I tell you all I would. I cannot rest, I cannot stay, I cannot linger anywhere. In life, my spirit never walked beyond our counting house. Mark me, never roam beyond the narrow limits of our money-changing hole, and weary journeys lie before me. But you were always a good man of business, Jacob. Business! Mankind was my business. Charity, mercy, benevolence were all my business. The dealings of my trade were but a drop of water in the comprehensive ocean of my business. Scrooge was very much dismayed to hear the spectre going on at this rate, and he began to quake exceedingly. Hear me, my time is nearly gone. I will, but don't be hard upon me, Jacob. Don't be flowery, Jacob, pray. I am here tonight to warn you that you have yet a chance and a hope of escaping my fate, a chance and hope of my procuring Ebenezer. You were always a good friend to me. Thank you. You will be haunted by 3 spirits. Oh, but is that the chance and hope you mentioned, Jacob? I think I'd rather not. Without their visits, you cannot hope to shun the path I tread. Expect the first when the bell tolls 1. Just have them all at once and get it over with, Jacob. Look tremble and look that for your own sake you remember what has passed between us. It said these words. The spectre took its wrapper from the table and bound it around its head as before. It walked backward from him, and with every step it took, the window raised itself a little, so that when the spectre reached it, it was wide open. Incoherent sounds of lamentation and regret filled the air. The spectre, after listening for a moment, joined in the mournful dirge and floated out upon the bleak, dark night. Scrooge followed to the window, desperate in his curiosity, and looked out. The air was filled with phantoms, wandering in restless haste and moaning as they went. Every one of them wore chains like Marley's ghost. Some few were linked together. None were free. Many had been known to Scrooge in their lives. He had been quite familiar with one old ghost whom he saw with a monstrous iron safe chained about its ankle, who cried out piteously at being unable to assist a wretched woman with an infant that saw below on a doorstep. The misery with them all was clearly that they sought to interfere for good in human matters, and had lost that power forever. Whether these creatures faded into the mist, or the mist enshrouded them, he could not tell. But they and their spectral voices faded together, and the night became as it had been when he walked home. Scrooge closed the window, examined the door by which the ghost had entered. It was double locked, and the bolts were undisturbed. He tried to say humbug, but he stopped after the first syllable. And, being from the emotion he had undergone, the fatigues of the day, or his glimpse into the invisible world, he went straight to bed without undressing, and fell asleep upon the instant. Scrooge awoke. It was so dark that he could scarcely distinguish his transparent window from the opaque walls of his chamber. He was endeavoring to pierce the darkness with his eyes when suddenly he heard the chimes of the clock strike the 4 quarters. First, hour itself, and nothing else. Light flashed up in the room upon the instant. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside. The curtains of his bed were drawn aside, I tell you, by a hand. Scrooge found himself face to face with a strange figure, like a child, yet not so like a child as like an old man diminished to a child's proportions. Its hair, which hung about its neck and down its back, was white, as if with age, yet the face had not a wrinkle in it, and the tenderest bloom was on its skin. It held a branch of fresh green holly in its hand, and yet its dress was trimmed with summer flowers. But the strangest thing about it was that from the crown of its head there sprung a bright, clear jet of light, by which all of this was visible. Are you the spirit, sir, whose coming was foretold me? I am. But who and what are you? I am the ghost of Christmas past. Long past. No, your past. Well, what business brings you here? Your welfare. Rise and walk with me. The grasp, as gentle as a woman's hand, was not to be resisted. He rose, but finding that the spirit made towards the window, he clasped its robe in supplication. Oh, no, I am mortal and liable to fall. Bear but a touch of my hand, there, and you shall be upheld in more than this. As the words were spoken, they passed through the wall. The city had entirely vanished, along with the darkness and the mist. It was a clear, cold winter day, and they stood upon a country road with snowy fields on either side. Scrooge was suddenly conscious of 1,000 odours floating in the air, each one connected with 1,000 thoughts and hopes and joys and cares, long, long forgotten. Good heavens, I was bred in this place. I was a boy here. You recollect the way? Remember it when I could walk it blindfolded. Strange thing to have forgotten it for so many years. Let us go on. They walked along the road, with Scrooge recognizing every gate and post and tree, until a little market town appeared in the distance with its bridge, its church, and its winding river. Some boys, in great spirits and shouting to each other, came trotting towards them. These are but the shadows of the things that have been. They have no consciousness of us. As they came on, Scrooge knew and named them, every one. Why was he rejoiced beyond all bounds to see them? Why was he filled with gladness when he heard them give each other a Merry Christmas as they parted? What was Merry Christmas to Scrooge? They left the high road, a well-remembered lane, and soon approached a mansion of dull red brick and broken fortunes. This school is not quite deserted. A solitary child, neglected by his friends, is left there still. I know it. They entered the dreary hall. There was an earthy savour in the air, a chilly bareness in the place, which associated itself somehow with too much getting up by candlelight, and not too much to eat. At the end of the hall, a door opened, and a long, bare, melancholy room, made barer still by lines of empty desks. In one of these, a lonely boy was reading near a feeble fire, and Scrooge sat down and looked upon his poor forgotten self as he had used to be. I wish. No, it's too late now. What is the matter? Nothing. There was a boy singing a Christmas carol at my door last night. I should have liked to have given him something, that's all. Let us see another Christmas. Scrooge's former self grew larger at these words, and the room became a little darker and more dirty. The panels shrunk, the windows cracked, and fragments of plaster fell out of the ceiling. How all this was brought about, Scrooge knew no more than you do. He only knew that it was quite correct, that everything had happened so, and that there he was alone again, when all the other boys had gone home for the holidays. The door opened, and a little girl came darting in. She threw her arms about his neck and kissed him again and again. Oh, my dear, dear brother, I have come to bring you home. What home? little fan. Yes, yes, home, home for good and all, home forever and ever. Oh, Father is so much kinder than he used to be, and he spoke so gently to me one night, but I was not afraid to ask him if you might come home. Oh, and he said, yes, you should, and he sent me in a coach to bring you. Oh, you ought to be a man, and you're never to come back here. But first, we're to be together all Christmas long, and have the merriest time in all the world. Oh, you're quite a woman, little fan. She clapped her hands and laughed, and stood up on tiptoe to embrace him. And then she began to drag him in her childish eagerness towards the door. Your sister was always a delicate creature whom breath might have withered, but she had a large heart. So she had. She died a woman and had, as I think, children. True. One child. Yes, your nephew. Fred. Yes. Although they had at that moment but left the school behind them, they were now in the busy thoroughfares of a city. Here too, it was Christmas time again, and the ghost stopped in front of a certain warehouse door and asked Scrooge if he knew it. Mary, I apprenticed here. They went in. At the sight of an old gentleman in a Welsh wig sitting behind such a lofty desk that if he'd been 2 inches taller, he would have knocked his head against the ceiling, old Scrooge cried out in great excitement, Why, it's old Fezziwig alive again! Oh, bless me, yes, it's old Fezziwig! Old Fezziwig laid down his pen and looked up at the clock, which pointed to the hour of 7. He rubbed his hands together, adjusted his capacious waistcoat, and laughed all over himself, from his shoes to his organ of benevolence, and called out in a comfortable, rich, fat, oily, jovial voice, "Ho there, me boys! Ebenezer! Dick!" A young man, Scrooge's former self, came briskly in, accompanied by his fellow apprentice. It's Dick Wilkins, to be sure, my old fellow apprentice, bless me, yes. Who was very much attached to me was Dick, 40, dear. Oh, my boys, no more work tonight. Christmas Eve, Dick, Christmas, Ebenezer. Now clear away, me lads, and let's have lots of room in here. Clear away. There was nothing that they wouldn't have cleared away, or couldn't have cleared away, with old Fezziwig looking on. It was done in a minute. Everything movable was packed off, as if it were dismissed from public life for evermore. The floor was swept and watered, the lamps were trimmed, fuel was heaped upon the fire, and the warehouse was as snug and warm and dry and bright a ballroom as you could wish to see upon a winter's night. In came a fiddler with a music book, and he went up to the lofty desk and made an orchestra of it, and tuned like 50 stomachies. In came all the young men and women employed at the business, one after the other, some shyly, some boldly, some gracefully, some awkwardly, some pushing, some pulling, but in they all came anyhow and everyhow, and away they all went. 20 couple at once, hands up around, back again the other way, down the middle, up again, round and round. Oh, top couple always turning up at the wrong place, until old Fezziwig, clapping his hands to stop the dance, cried out, "Well done!" The fiddler plunged his hot face into a pot of porter, which had been especially provided for that purpose.